take you home.
Hello and welcome to the Help My Unbelief podcast, the number one Christian podcast designed for the unbeliever. Chitty chitty bang bang. Did I get you? You should really look for these Bible verses before we start the show.
I don't look for the Bible verses. The Lord directs me to them.
Well, hey, Lord, can you tell Larry to do this before the show starts so we can talk during the first 20 minutes of the show?
He
said
talk
yes.
for the first 20 minutes of the show.
He said yes, by the way.
It's all right.
I know you didn't say that, but it's fine. What?
Hey, Zach, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, happy birthday.
Yep. It was my birthday. I just
Belated birthday, belated anniversary, and yet you never told me that your birthday was that close to mine.
Yeah, I think we've discussed this
Didn't we
before.
really?
I think so, yeah.
That's
Yours
one of
is
those
what? Yours is what?
insignificant talks that we had where it didn't stick.
Yeah, I guess I don't even care about my birthday anymore.
I don't either.
It's like what happens after 25 whenever you get a like an insurance discount? Like what happens after that?
No, your next deal is, and I just took advantage of it on my trip, was the senior citizens discount at Denny's.
You do
Now,
not get a senior citizen.
Yes.
I did
discount.
it. It begins at 55.
55.
I'm 56. So
Yes.
I rocked that Denny's menu, that senior, and I was like, yeah, I'm loving
Did you have to
this.
show them your ID, or were they okay with it?
They were okay with it.
You know
which
why
is
they were
nice,
okay with
'cause
it?
I look it.
No, it's amazing.
Why?
All you have to do is tell them. They figured you wouldn't lie about it.
Yeah. Who would lie about
I went,
Who would lie about getting a 10% discount?
by the way, we're happy to have Mark back.
Yes, I missed you, Mark.
I think it's
missed
the
you
first
guys.
time you've been gone 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, that's not cool.
I didn't like that.
That was
So not
crazy.
cool.
I know.
He was on vacation. He says he didn't think about us at all.
Maybe one.
I know. Let's see. He got a text from me daily,
Yeah,
Did he really?
I thought.
Your
multiple
Bible
times.
verses, yeah.
Multiple times.
And I thought about you guys when I was up on the mountain singing to God. I thought about you guys.
Oh,
I was
okay.
like, I wish they could be here. This was
Yeah.
pretty epic.
We should have just
Yeah.
took the whole podcast there and made
Should've.
a group
Yeah, we should
vacation,
yeah.
working vacation, so
Well,
that we
they-
could actually write it off, which
Guys-
we can't write off any of this stuff. So
Because we're not making money.
yeah,
Hey,
there's no reason to write it off.
they do this every year, so you should get a hold of the K-Love people and try to get permission to do that.
It really would be a lot cooler if Kayla would get a hold of us.
Yeah. We're going to get so big that I was going to say, like, can you turn my headphones up just a little bit? Just a little.
What number?
I was going to say because, there we go, I like that a little better. I was going to say because I had taken a month off to where I hadn't been paying attention so much to the podcast editing and as much to the effort I put into the clips and stuff like that. And I was doing less clips really. And then I got to thinking about it because I got to thinking I'm too busy to do that. Well, all that time I had always done it in the morning. And I was like, well, what am I doing in the mornings? What am I doing now in the mornings to replace that? And I got to thinking about it and I was like, really what all I'm doing is just messing around. Definitely not doing stuff to glorify God, right? And so I made the decision to start paying attention to it. And sure enough, we had a video take off when you start paying attention to it a little more and start taking care of it. And then we had 1 month where the podcast, the last month where the podcast downloads went down low, because that's how I get the podcast in front of people is with those clips. And if you're not paying attention to the clips, then people aren't seeing it. So we had a month where we dipped down low on downloads and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah. So I was like, well, got to start paying attention to this. And then Michaela came on and her video took off and that went right back up. And we made TikTok changed how they do their video, how they pay their creators on their videos. We made like $60 on one clip. Like $60. Is that not crazy?
I don't know what any of that means.
We made $60 on a minute-long clip.
You can say it louder if you want to, but it's still gonna not mean anything to me.
We made $60.
But I don't care. So therefore, I don't care. I'm not
You
here.
don't care if we make money?
No, I'm not that interested in money.
But we need it to like do other cool stuff.
I
Isn't there
know,
cool stuff you want to do?
But yeah, no, not really. But here's the thing. Okay. I mean, I have learned, all right, that currency in heaven is souls.
Yeah, that's the first clip
So
I
I
ever made.
am not interested.
You remember that clip I made?
Man, that was when we were practicing, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the first clip I ever made of you.
When I realized that money lost its hold on me, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
like big time. I mean, I work, I
Well-
make money and whatnot, but it has no real hold on me because
Yeah.
God provides. As long as I'm focusing my life on God, God provides for my needs.
Yeah,
And I'm not interested in my wants anymore.
yeah.
I'm only interested in my needs.
Well, hear me out though. I'm not looking at it as like desires for like, but I know we need money to grow.
Yes, I do understand that.
That's what I'm looking for.
But it takes a lot of pressure off me because, quite frankly, I gave it to you.
Yeah.
All of that part goes to you and you y'all
Well-
guys figure that stuff out. I just need to be me over here.
Well, but my problem is like I don't have any future plans of me ever making $1 off this ever. Like I got the other companies I'm looking into. Like I want to start like a podcast production company someday, and then I've got my roofing company. I'll make money there, but I want it all to go back into here. Does that make sense?
I do. Yes, I'm
All of it.
also in complete agreement with that, and I would like to be part of helping others grow.
Yeah. Well, why do you think you always tell me, you say, whenever an expense is incurred for this, and you say, just take it out of that account. And
Right.
I say, no, if I have the money, I'm going to pay it out of my personal pocket because I want to see that money go to something to grow this, not just to pay me back or whatever.
Because I also know that there are times when we did not have something that we needed and the funds were there, but we both refused to use it.
Yeah.
And we are still technically, we've kind of put that on a slow burn for a while. And now I think that we need to kind of start stepping that up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And
Man, if I could
there's things I want. There are things that I would love for God to give me an opportunity to do.
Yeah. But you need money to do
that
it.
helps people.
Yep.
That are close to my heart, and I don't mean the people close to my heart. The ministry.
The ministry that's
that is close to my heart.
Yeah.
And I would love for that to grow, but I do know one thing about God for sure, that if I'm not mature enough to handle that at this particular time, then God's not going to just give it to me because I want it.
Yep.
Because he's not going to see it crash and burn.
Yep.
So I also have the peace that comes from knowing God will do that in his own timing.
Yep.
And I just have to sit and wait.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
So I don't get all stressed out about that stuff for that reason.
Yeah, that's why I'm able to have a lot more peace, because I realize that no matter how dire it looks and how stressed out you get and stuff like that, God's got a plan and he's going to bring you out of it. So what's the point of being? You can ask her. I've been doing phenomenal, man. Like we had a $2,000 mistake. We punctured a hole in someone's air conditioner line when we were doing the roof. And I mean, this line, first of all, who runs an air conditioner line on and straps it to the decking of a roof?
I can't answer that question.
First of all, don't do that, you know. And it was this long, and it's like that big around. So it's literally almost impossible to hit it, but we sure did. We drove a nail through it, right?
Yeah,
and popped that free.
I am actually familiar with this house.
Yeah.
And it was designed, I think it was built in 2019.
I know, that's what's weird
Like
about
it's
it. It's
that
like
new.
a modern
It's that
built house,
Yeah.
and they still ran it. But anyway, I was just thanking God that I had the money to do the right thing, which I put these people in a hotel
And
for
he
4 days.
did the right thing.
Yeah.
They are new friends of mine. And I recommended you for the job, and they have spoke very highly of the way you handled the situation.
Yeah, we put them in a motel room for 4 days until the AC people could
I
come
told them
out.
to eat all the food, wear all the robes, and use every towel.
I was worried that I was going to get some like miscellaneous restaurant bill from that. Like that was like an extra $2,000. I'd have been like, hey, now.
They didn't invite me to eat.
No.
I had a situation occur like that about a month ago.
Really?
Yeah, my tenant, my wife's mother died and left us her house. It was a big put a lot of money into it out of my business just to keep it in the family. Figured, okay, we'll fix it up enough to rent out, and so we can keep it for the children someday, because the Bible says to leave an inheritance, right?
Right.
So I dumped all this money into this house, and it was a frustrating process fixing all the things that needed to be fixed that had happened when people get old and they can't, take care of their own stuff anymore. And so I got it rented, and it was really weird how God put the perfect renter, another believer that needed a place in the house. But then she called and she said, well, the toilet's backing up. Guys came out and they said, well, this is a house in the village. The lines have collapsed. So you're going to need a whole new sewer line. $9,500.
Good grief.
$9,500. And it was everything that I'd had,
Put back for
a rainy day. I normally do that. Build back for when times get slow. That surfs me through my business. And, normally, I wouldn't say normally, 10, 15 years ago, that would have spun me out. That would have owned me. I'd have been angry about it, upset, worried, all feared up about it. What's going to happen? And, I just started laughing. And it was funny because before that, I'd gotten hammered with a whole bunch of business. And I remember looking at my wife and saying, well, one thing God has proved to me is that we're getting ready to get a big bill. I don't know what it is. The minute I start thinking, hey, I could get more stuff, or hey, I could do this, or I could do that, it's just a real sense, God keeps me tight for a reason. I'm not very disciplined, but he always provides, because I pay tithe, man. He always provides. And it's so funny when I get a huge influx of work, I always turn to my wife and say, yeah, we think we're going to do something. We're going to go to Jamaica maybe, No, God's just providing me what I need. So anyway, we got all that work done, got this big influx of money, and then ring. Hey, guess what?
Yep.
$9,500 bill.
Let me ask you. Would you speak that curse over your world?
I probably
did. We got money, and now we're going to get a big bill somewhere. That's exactly the words that we say have the ability to bless or curse
us. I agree, Larry, and this is where I need to grow in my spiritual journey. It's where God's pulling and stretching me, is in my finances and being mature about that. Because my dad died when I was 12. I was never taught how to handle money, ever. And I have no clue how to handle money. I've been a complete moron. I'm 55 years old, and I admittedly have spent and acted like an 18-year-old most of my life with money.
I have to agree. I'm the same way. But my parents were there. It was just not one of those things that they taught us kids. They didn't do it in front of us. They didn't discuss bills. They didn't talk about bills. They didn't argue about bills in front of me. I can honestly say I never remember my mom and dad arguing over anything. If they had a discussion, it was taken to the bedroom, the door shut. We don't hear them.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't care if you were playing out in the backyard and the window was open. You didn't hear them.
Right.
I grew up in a house without an air conditioner. We had a water cooler. So, the windows were always open.
Mm. Well, it'd be one really cool thing for churches to do, I think, in this day and age, is maybe to get some people and start having groups and
teaching financial.
Yeah, the godly use of money.
Biblical, financial.
Ramsey
learning, teaching,
right?
Yeah,
well,
Ramsey does.
So remember, I told you about that, and I don't want to but Pastor Martha, she's talking about doing that podcast, and me and Angela are going to produce it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's her idea behind that show, is a discipleship podcast, teaching things like how to have a godly marriage and how to put God into your finances, and that's her idea. Is to have that. She's going to do once a month. And she's going to talk about these topics like that. She even brought that up, though, about how to handle your finances in a godly way. That's why I'm like, I don't know if what you're saying, like maybe God God just, I don't know. I don't think he wouldn't bless you just because you're little. I don't think you're bad. Your house is way bigger than mine and stuff like that. I'm sure you know how to handle money. You know? No, you said, but now.
I could do better, but I've done better now than I have my whole life. Yeah.
Well, just like we went out to eat for our anniversary last night, and it was $60 a plate to go eat, but we don't ever do.
A plate?
Yeah, $60 a plate.
It's
but
crazy.
we've never done.
Oh my gosh.
We've never done anything like that, by the way. But we went and done that, and I had a thought pop up in my head that I was like, "Oh man, because we're making all this money now, we could do stuff like this way more often." And then I instantly shut it down. Like it wasn't really even me doing the thought process.
That's good because let me tell you, that's my weakness.
Is eating out.
I was raised by my dad was 57 when I was born. So basically he had made his money. He was retired and he didn't like my mother's cooking because she was like vegan. She fed him these things that were made out of
vegan before it was cool.
Well, yeah, it was the Ellen G. White diet plan from when we. Yeah, she fed him these tofu things, and I remember when it happened. I was like 7 years old, and he said, "Are we having these blankety blank shoe heels again?" And he said, "Get up!" And so we go out to eat. So the whole time I remember is going out to eat. Mm-hmm. It's like my love language. Man, that's an expensive habit.
That's mine too, man.
And
you can ask her.
I obsessively eat out, and I find nice restaurants, and I like to eat out. When things are going good, we eat out good, and that's one of the things God is really working on me about. You know, I don't want to go to heaven and miss all the opportunities. They say, "Well, you're well fed, ain't you, boy?" You know.
Yep.
You know, what'd you do with all that?
Darcy and I went through that phase where we were going to restaurants quite a bit, and it was just her and I. You know, so it gets down to where it's kind of difficult just cooking for the two of us.
Right.
But I come from a family of cooks, man.
Right.
And I can cook better than most of the restaurants I eat at.
Oh, well, there you go.
There's certain things that I don't even try because, you know, I don't have the time to really honestly cook a rack of ribs or a brisket the way it needs to be. It needs to be loved and caressed and rested, and you know it takes you 12 hours to do that kind of stuff. I don't have time for that. But overall, both of us cook very well. But there was a time where finances were adequate, and we were hitting those steak places. And now I don't even eat steak. Right. It's just not something I really want.
Well,
I wanted to bring this back around the circle and say, Zach, from my experience, I think God does this. He gives us talents, right? Mm-hmm. He lets the stuff come in. Then he watches what we do with it. Don't make the same mistake I did for a good decade and a half of my life, which was when in plenty, acting like plenty was going to go on forever, right? Taking it for, because the Bible says when in plenty, you plan for the season of drought because drought is coming.
Yep.
And that's wise use of what God is giving us. And I didn't do that. And it caused me a lot of pain. I've lost stuff, houses and relationships because of that crazy idea of, woohoo, it's going to be big time forever.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why
to learn that lesson.
What we've been through this last winter was such a good lesson for us because we have the same thoughts that we had before that thing happened, but those thoughts last like this. Like we literally had a discussion about buying a house this year because we had a really good month to where we were going to have more. We're going to have more money than we've ever had in our life. I mean, she's made double her salary in 1 month. Double her yearly salary in 1 month. And so like insane amount of money. But there's expenses, right? And where we're dumping it back into people. But what I was going to say is we have that thought, let's rush in to go buy a house. And then God answered. I mean, those thoughts, we talked about that. And then we made the decision to stay another year in our tiny little rent house, even though everybody hates it. We made a decision right then. The minute that thought comes up, we shut it down right then. I mean, it's like because of what we went through last year, it literally makes it to where when we get those thoughts and those temptations, it shuts it down instantly.
You can bring into mind with sufficient force your experience to give you to tell you, okay, no,
Well,
not yet.
And just like she's going around and she's barking order. I had a talk with her today. She's going around and barking orders at the new salesman and like, make sure you're doing this. And she's very aggressive about it. And everybody was like, God, mom's acting. Or Lane said, God, mom's acting like this. And then she's very direct and stuff like that. And I said, so I had to talk with her. I had to talk with her, and I said, listen, first I had to talk with my salesman. I said, listen, what me and her been through, I don't expect you guys to understand what we went through last year. But she's earned the right to feel the way she feels. This is her business.
Right.
And she has fought for it.
She's a boss,
we
man.
We have given up peace. We have given up all this stuff for it, and that's why she's acting like that. Now, she needs to learn how to manage that, and so those emotions that she feels comes out a little differently. It's not as aggressive towards people, which I'm sure she'll do fine at doing that. She does great at making these modifications. But if you want to know why she's saying those things, it's because of what we went through, and we care.
Way to defend your wife.
Yeah, of course I do in any circumstances that I can think of. At least I'm sure I don't always do the best, but I look at the way she's acting. And I understand it. I understand she cares about what we've built. Does that make sense? So,
well, interesting that you're talking about tithes. In Malachi 3:10, that is the only place where God actually challenges you to challenge him, or to test him, and it's in tithes and offerings. Okay, hold on, 10. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and test me in this. God says, test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that you will not have room to receive it. The reason that is so important is sometimes when we are having more difficulty making the ends meet, that it's a little bit tighter, right? And I don't want to tithe because, that could go toward a bill.
Right.
That's not how our heart should be.
Nope.
And God later on says that if he can't trust us with little, how can he trust us with much?
Mm-hmm.
So he trusted you with little, and I know what you did.
Right.
Yeah. Because you and I discussed it several times.
I know there was one time that I had a plan to use some money that was going to go towards a material bill. I had a plan to use that to survive for a couple months, and I would pay it off later. And God, just like he always does, he woke me up in the middle of the night and he said, pay all of it. And so it was a $14,000 material bill, and I paid all of it. And I ended up getting mad at God because we ended up going broke. And I said, see, your plan was me to pay this off, and then you didn't provide for me. That was my mindset. You didn't provide for me. But I'm telling you this right now, we would have never, ever, me looking at the books now, we would have never recovered. Our business right now, me talking to you, would be shut down.
Right. So
if I wouldn't have paid it.
What God did was he was preparing you for the inflow, so you still had a good relationship with your supplier.
We would have been done.
Yeah.
We would have been done. Now we had one.
God's amazing.
We had one that, and I told her, I was like, no matter how good you go, there was one material bill that was like $4,400 or something like that. And when I started doing the books, like I told you about a month ago now, I think, I started doing the books and I looked at it, and I still knew I had to account for that. But what I was doing, I was taking a certain percentage of each job and I was bopping it in, I was leaving it into the account for that bill because I knew it had to do it, but there was not enough in there to cover it. And once I did the books, not only was that bill gone, but there was like $1,300 left over when I did the books. And that's before the good month.
And that's all because you paid tithe.
Not only that, I do know a couple of times when Zach basically, and Darcy and I have been there, gave the last dime to pay the tithe. I said with Darcy
not
and
basically.
I. Oh, but I mean, no, that they paid the last bit of their tithe. So he obeyed, and that's how we show our love for God. And through his obedience, then God, right here, it said, test me down this. So you tested him without even realizing it because you obeyed, you tested God, and now look at what God's done.
Here's what I'll say.
He's turned around your finances in what, 2 months?
here's what I'll say.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much money I
crazy.
have.
It's
Not
amazing.
only
Crazy.
not only will I continue to give to the church, but I'll also God, and I know God knows my heart, and I'm speaking from the heart. But not only will I continue to give the church, but if He ever tells me to do anything with the money, I will do it always. Because I don't want to go back there again, man.
No, you
Yeah,
have to
no,
climb that
exactly.
mountain
No.
again.
Well, see, all of us have seen the bum on the corner. Okay, they don't hide. They're there. They're trying to get $1 or whatever. And if God lays it on your heart to give them money, then give them the money. Period.
Yeah.
Because
Doesn't matter what they're going to do with it.
everybody says, well, they're just going to go get drunk on it. They're just going to go get high on it. You know what? It doesn't matter. It's the intention of your heart when you gave, not what they've done with it.
Yep.
It's your obedience, not theirs. And you have to, the easiest way to obey God is to tithe. It needs to be that important in your life that it is continually obeyed.
I know at the time that was like that was my hope, because I knew that His promise was going to come through. Like when He was talking to me a lot back then too, like He was really wanting me to get something back then. Like, because God's not talking to me as much as He was then. Y'all remember me talking all the time, and He's not talking to me, but God had something He needed to work out of me right then, because it was constant. He was talking to me constantly, waking me up in the middle of the night. There'd be nights I couldn't sleep. I mean, He was constantly talking to me. And I don't really know why He needed to get that done so quickly. I have no clue, in fact. But for whatever reason, I look back at that, and I'm reminiscing on it a lot right now because we're talking about it. For whatever reason, during that time, He had something He needed me to get right then, and then now He's backed off. He might be giving me a break, because that was really taxing, like
And
stressful.
No, but
my experience with God, that's a consistent theme: stretch, break,
yeah,
release.
yeah,
There's always rest after the stretching and a breaking of something in you, and it just doesn't happen once.
yeah.
It happens your whole life, or my whole relationship with God. Some of the breaks were a lot more painful than they are today. So now it's almost like stretching. Okay, I feel that. I give it up. I'm learning here,
You learn how to make it shorter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
learn how to make it shorter. I don't fight the process like I used
Yeah,
to.
That is a learned thing right
Right.
there, not to fight the process.
That's where I was. You guys. I literally told you guys the whole time I was fighting it. I was.
Oh, yeah, you were
I was
fighting it.
pissed.
Yeah, we were involved in it, remember?
Yeah, I was
Every
pissed.
bit of it.
But like I said, yeah. I mean, dude, it's just really cool to see Him bring us through.
It's
and who knows
like,
what the next thing is.
it's
but-
kind of like this. The Bible talks about being the clay on the potter's wheel, right? Okay. And during the time that the artist, is messing with the clay, it's constant. Okay? It's constant. And then sometimes you have to let it rest because you've worked it so much it starts getting too soft to hold a shape. And I don't know if you know that much about it, but that's that constant. And then when you're the other piece of clay watching the clay on the wheel, you're like, I don't know if I want to go through that process.
Right.
You got to stop and think about that. How do you see that? In being a landscaper, I know about pruning. And when I see God pruning so I recognize it. When I see God pruning something off someone's life, you kind of want to help,
Right.
like,
But you can't.
pat and rub and stuff. But you got to sit over here and watch the process that somebody else is going through. And it's difficult sometimes to not go, man, it'll, hey, bro, it'll be all right. But one thing I want that Pastor Didi brought up in Ambassadors today was your prayers never die. The prayers that you pray never die. So those prayers that you prayed and you don't think are answered is because the time for the answer isn't now. And God never will forget what you asked Him.
Right.
His promises are that He is continually paying attention to you.
It's only two answers.
When you seek after Him, there's your reward.
Yep.
It's constant.
2 answers to every prayer. Yes, and not right now. I've got something better in mind.
There you go.
Not right
okay.
now. Just hold on and wait.
So let's get to our guest. It's 2:37. Her name is Dakota Lee. I've been excited to talk to her. Dakota Lee says she visits heaven, and she's been doing it since she was 12, I believe. I don't know her full story. I've watched a couple of her videos, but you guys know how we do. We're not going to speculate on what on what her story is. We're just going to let her tell you her
What is
story.
she considered?
She's a Christian. Yeah. She believes in Jesus. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So we're interviewing a Christian.
We do that all the time, Larry.
Yes, but it's always Christian tied to stuff.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, it's not. Michaela, what is Michaela?
Zach, we don't do that all the time.
Well,
But,
okay.
you know, okay.
We do that rarely.
Right. Okay. Well,
Michaela is a Christian now, but she wasn't a
I get
Christian
why
then. She was, she is a reformed New Age.
okay.
She is a
All right.
constructed
All right.
deconstructionist.
You guys are
I
trying
mean,
to get me to be honest, and I'll be honest. Okay. I'll be honest. Hold on. Okay. So, Dakota Lee gets a lot of hate from our fellow Christian brothers and sisters because of some of the ideas and things she says about when she visits heaven. Okay. And so we're not here to jam her up. We're going to do what Help My Unbelief does. But unfortunately, that's some of the same things she says. But we're going to let her speak for herself instead of sitting here talking when she's not on here and stuff like that. So, but
I usually ask, you usually tell, so I have
can
some
see
idea
why
what
you're
to write
shocked
down.
when I said she's a Christian. Duh, and you guys are like, Zach, that's not what we. Yeah,
Wait a minute.
It's the Help My Unbelief podcast. We all know that's not how it normally goes. But yeah, so let's get to her, Dakota Lee.
Hello.
Dakota Lee, how are you doing?
I am doing good, Zach. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I am 9 minutes late, and I apologize. Larry got to talking too much. Let's say that.
It's typically
Okay, no
my
worries.
fault. It's typically my
Hi,
fault.
Larry.
How you doing? Nice to meet
I'm
you,
good.
Dakota.
Nice to meet you, too.
Okay, so I was just describing to the audience. This is not live, by the way, but
okay.
I was trying to give you an introduction, and the reason because my co-host, I never tell them who we're having on until we sit here.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
so normally,
No research, nothing, just
Yeah.
freelance. There
So-
you go.
Okay.
So I said, they said, who's coming on today? And I said, and Dakota Lee. And they said, okay, well, what is she? And I said, she's a Christian. And then I was like, we have Christians on here all the time. And then they reminded me that we don't. We normally have people that don't believe in God. And so anyway, the format of this show is this is not a debate show. So if there's something we disagree on or we don't like what the other person says, we have to stay respectful. It's really not in us to debate in any way, shape, or form. We're really here just to hear your story.
Have a conversation.
Yep. We're really just
That's
here
so
to do
powerful.
that.
And to
So-
help me, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 27.
Okay.
Is that a pin clicker, Larry?
Not yet.
Okay. We need to figure out the guidelines of the pin clicker because Larry normally clicks his pin when someone's young. He'll click his pin.
I know what the guideline is.
What is
It's
it?
when Larry has weighed what they're saying against their age and summarily dismissed the idea.
There you go. There you go. Larry can't figure out.
Don't
why
let
they're
them.
saying-
Don't
Yeah.
let them scare you, Dakota. Don't let them scare you. I am just an old man.
Okay.
Been there, done that, and all that stuff.
So let me go around and introduce everybody in the room. That way you're not confused for the next 30 minutes to an hour, whatever it is.
Okay.
Okay. So to my left here, I got my wonderful executive producer, Mark.
Hey, Dakota.
Hi, Mark.
Hey.
And then my beautiful wife, Angela. She doesn't talk a whole lot. She's the director.
Hello.
Hello.
And then I've got my well-trimmed. He trimmed his bush today.
I never let my beard get bushy.
Okay.
Okay,
My visor-wearing,
that
handsome
I am.
devil,
That I am.
6'4", illustrious
6'5".
co-host, Larry.
All right.
6'5". He never gives me the full measure. It's okay.
And then
I'm also old as all dirt. So, or not, well, almost, no, not really. Some dirt I'm older than.
Yeah, a lot of dirt, actually. Quite a bit of it, I would imagine. So.
Well, he had a birthday, or I had a birthday. He tried to catch up. He had a birthday. He's still missing it by 25 years or something like that.
Funny how that happens. Man.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And my name is Zach. I'm the host. I'm the one that's, super tan.
Going to talk to you more than the others.
I'm tan. I'm good looking. I add a
Humble
shine,
as all get out.
shine to every room I go in,
Yeah. He's also
Yeah,
shy.
different, yep.
He's also shy and bashful.
Right. The only nice things I hear is the things I say about myself. So I got to get it in here once a week in episodes. So, okay. Well, Dakota Lee, we're going to go ahead and get to you. Thank you for coming on the show, by the way. I appreciate it.
Yes, I'm excited.
That was a stab,
So
wasn't it?
let's just get straight into it. So you've been visiting heaven since you were 12 years old.
Yes, since I was 12 years old.
I've actually never heard anyone say that before, that they visit heaven. How long have you been telling people that?
Since I was 12 years old.
Oh, really?
But, yeah, well, I was blessed to be in a church when I was at that age that was really supportive of a lot of spiritual gifts. And so when I started visiting, I could tell at least my small youth group, and then I was able to tell, like, my parents have known since I was, honestly, my mom was there for the first ever vision I ever had, which was 4 years old, and she was encouraging me in that. So I got a lot of church, at least in this area, I got a lot of support from my church, at least in this area growing up. So, but to tell people on a big platform, like for the world, which I've wanted to do since I was a teenager, it was only been this year.
Because, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking like that must have been hard when you were a kid, but it sounds like it was. It sounds like it wasn't difficult. You didn't get made fun of or anything for telling people that?
Well, see, I was pretty wise into who would probably accept me and who probably wouldn't. And so I did end up living what felt a lot of times like a split life. There was a school me and there was a church me. And I did not let them interact too much or cross over too much. And that's painful. It's a different kind of pain. So I really like living a wholehearted life now because I lived what felt like a double life for so long. So that's another really awesome part of being able to tell everybody about my experiences.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Tell me about the first time you ever visited heaven.
Oh man, that's a good one. All right. So I was 12 years old, as we have covered. And I was at a youth camp. So like church camp for teenagers. It was my first one I ever gone to. I was barely old enough, right? 12 years old to qualify for it.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys know what those are like, but basically your church. Yeah. Okay. So church signs up to send a bunch of the teenagers to a sleepaway camp with worship services and sermons and activities in the middle. And you're usually pretty tired by the end. So this was a great opportunity for me. And, I'd been seeing Jesus since I was 10 years old. An angel since I was 8 years old. So I was working on my spiritual giftings and seeing a lot. Well, I can't even remember which night of the camp it was, but one night, I was praying during the worship service and I felt like, Jesus sort of tapped me on the shoulder. So I opened my physical eyes. I also opened my spiritual eyes. And when I looked up, I saw Jesus, his spirit hovering above me. And above all the kids. And he held his hand down to me and he said, "Are you ready?" And I did not know what for, but it doesn't matter because it's Jesus. And so I said, "Yes, I'm ready." So I physically held up my hand back to him. His spirit met me and he pulled my spirit out of my body. And he as my guide, pulled me on up and we sort of floated up the ceiling. And I remember both of our backs sort of like hit the ceiling like a couple of balloons. And I remember looking down at this, true out of body experience, seeing all the kids worshiping God, seeing the stage from a different angle. I could even see my own body. And it was with my hand still up. And I said, "Jesus, I'm still sort of connected to my body. I think my arm's going to get tired if my arm stays up." And he said to me, it's okay. You can go back down for a second and put your arm down, and then I'll bring you back up to me. So that was a risk, even though he said it would be okay. I was so excited about this experience, but I was really worried that if I left in that moment, I wouldn't be able to come back to him.
Oh,
so
right.
So I still took the risk, and I don't know, it was kind of natural. I kind of felt myself, call myself back to my own body. I put my arm down. I closed my physical eyes so they couldn't be distracting, and then hoped that Jesus would take me back again, and he did.
How long was it? How long was it, like, before? Well, I guess he brought you back right then, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So
okay.
that whole, like, go visit your body and then come back to Jesus, spirit back to Jesus, that was probably like 3 or 4 seconds.
Okay.
And real quick. And then so Jesus let me have another moment next to him, with my spirit next to him, observing this. Then he looked at me again and he said, again, are you ready? And I said again, yes, I'm ready. So at that point, it was with Jesus in charge. He kind of let our spirit float through the ceiling, and then we just kept going up. And I didn't know where we were going. I was just following him. He didn't say where we were going, but we kept going up and up. And I remember looking down, I could see the whole layout of the camp. I was like, oh, that's the trail I walked earlier. We kept going up, and I saw this outline of the woods. It was night, so it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a, well, anyway, it's an interesting memory to see, you know, the woods at night. Some things were different. There weren't a lot of lights around. We kept going up. We started going through the cloud layer, and we kept going up. We kept going up. And at a certain point, we were so high, I could just barely start to see the curvature of the earth. And at that point, it was almost sudden. I felt like I suddenly passed through, it felt like a bubble, like moving through a really thick bubble. And I just knew somehow I had passed through the atmosphere.
Wow.
And that was, it was amazing. And I just stared at Earth for a moment. You know, I could see lights from a far off city, had no idea which city it was, but I knew, you know, underneath me, well, actually it was sort of covered with clouds, so I couldn't see exactly where it came from. And I just stared at that for a moment. And that, believe me, that would have been enough to amaze me, but Jesus was not done. He had been next to me the whole time. He was holding my hand, and he sort of then tapped me on the shoulder. I looked at him, and he was the one that kind of turned me around, turned my spirit around. And when I turned around, unmistakably, there was heaven. There was heaven.
Wow.
And it glowed. It was on sort of a cloud base, and there was sort of a bit of a wall. There even was a pearly gates, actual pearly gates, a little bit off to the side. And I thought I was amazed. I was like, wow, are we going in there? But Jesus didn't pull me in that direction yet. He actually told me to, which direction is it? The left. And we sort of followed this wall. I'm speechless. I'm not saying anything. I'm just following him. And as the wall started to get shorter and shorter and shorter until there was no wall. And what I saw on the other side, man, I get emotional literally every time I tell the story.
It's okay.
There was.
I do too.
There was this. It was the throne room. I'll give it the title. It was the throne room of God, and it was open at that point. The wall had descended so far that Jesus and I could just step inside. It was this golden courtyard that was maybe as big as a football field. And so Jesus and I kind of sort of float over the edge of it, and I can feel a gravity start to take hold, and that gravity sort of softly sets us down. Oh, man. And then at the back of the throne room were the thrones, and Jesus was with me. God was sitting on his throne, and he leaned down, he held out his arms, and it was just a come to me, Dakota. I'm just so happy to see you. So I need to grab some tissues. I've told this
I should have mailed you
times.
some before the show.
Well, thank you. Oh, man. My feet hit the ground, right? I felt barefoot in that moment. I was in the spirit, but I was like barefoot. And I just remember booking it across these golden tiles. And I ran over to his arms. He picked me up and I was in size comparison, he was, if I felt like I was a toddler and he was like a giant football player. That's how big he was to me. And he just leaned back in his throne. I was in his arms, and he just held me. He just held me, my spirit in heaven.
Wow. Are you able to go at will now, or is it when Jesus decides for you to go?
Amazingly, it's at will. It's at will. If I ever would like to visit, I'll ask Jesus, can I come up? And he goes, of course you're invited. And he'll sort of, my spiritual eyes will see him hold out his hand to me, and I sort of take that up, and he pulls me right on up.
And you leave your body. It's not a vision. It's an actual out of body experience.
Visiting heaven, yes, it's an out of body experience.
Because that's not considered a vision, right? There's because like Paul, what's his name? John was taken out of his body. He went out of his body and into heaven when Jesus was giving him that vision, and that's not called a vision then.
No, I mean, I differentiate it. I call it an experience because it really happened. Like, heaven is really there. It's an experience in heaven. So that's what I've been defining it. But so many people, when I, tell people what I do, I say vision because they kind of understand, oh, it's of a spiritual nature. But you're right. It is different.
Is there more people like you out there, or are you the only one you know about?
I think so. There is a woman I've heard of that seems to have a very similar gift, and there's plenty of people who have had visits to heaven, but in terms of someone who can like visit sort of, has an open path to come visit heaven, I'm the only one I know of so far.
I don't think I've ever heard of it either. Angela, you got something?
Hey, so I have a question for you. So have you ever seen the 4 angels that are on the floor in heaven?
Is this part of the Revelation?
That got all the eyes?
So I've seen at least one of them. And I've seen a lot of different angels in my time in heaven. And, there's kind of a couple different interpretations about the eyes. I'm not actually sure that from what I've seen, they didn't necessarily look like they were just covered in eyes from head to toe. But I knew this was the angel that was spoken of in Revelation, and God was right with me. So I asked God at that time, okay, what is going on? I think what am I seeing here? And God said that, Dakota, what you're getting, it's this angel that has a lot of eyes, because it's not necessarily like you physically see eyes. This angel has access to so many different people's experiences, dimensions, has such an incredible breadth of knowledge of things that this angel sees, that the best interpretation at the time of it was he has eyes covering every inch of him. And because he can see out of every bit of this angel. And he did have lots of different wings, and a face of I believe this one was the face of a man. This was quite a while ago for me. So, but I do remember the definition of eyes, at least for the angel that I saw, was different than I expected. It wasn't necessarily literal, but it made a little more sense to me.
So why? Here's a question I keep asking myself about this, because, I put myself in everyone's shoes that's telling me their story, and if I was in your shoes, I'd be asking this question: why me? Like, why am I the one that gets to do this and not someone else? Have you asked that question, and have you got that answer?
Of course. I've been asking that question
for a long time,
since I was little. And sometimes as I mature, God gives me a little more to the answer. And probably if I ask him again in a few years, there'll be a little more to the answer. So basically, I don't fully understand the reason why me. I'll start with that.
Okay.
But what God has told me before is that he's been preparing my family for generations to be able to support a kid like me, now a woman like me, and my family is really important to me, and they are a huge source of support to me. So that's one. And I don't know. He sort of built me for this. One thing that a lot of people come across and kind of put me on a pedestal with is I must be more loved than others. And everything I've seen points, well, that's just not true. God and Jesus love each of us to the maximum. And in that way, I can't be more loved than someone else. So I know that one isn't true.
It's a gift.
It's a gift. Yeah. It's a gift. Mm-hmm.
Do you think more people have this ability and they're not doing something properly? I don't know how to ask that because because yours was literally given to you. It's not like you had to do something to go and when you were 12, like it just happened. Well, I mean, you had to say yes, right? You had to say yes.
I did have to say yes.
But
no, there is something to what you're saying. So I do think a lot of people have a gift to see in the spirit or sense in the spirit. There's a lot of different kinds of gifts out there. And I do think a lot of people, I think I've seen it run in family lines from the different stories I've heard from others. And a lot of people say, no, I don't want this because they see a really scary side to this gift. I was blessed to just be, peas in a pod with Jesus and God since I was a little kid. So I've seen dark things too, but I have massively had incredibly positive experiences. And God did build me up from, little kid getting visions, seeing angels while I was in my own body on earth, and build up my spiritual sight to the point it was and is like a muscle that I could see for longer periods of time, long enough to be able to spend a long time in heaven. That's what
happens to me too. Like I told this story on literally 30 episodes ago, but I see a lot of dark things, and I've never seen an angel. I've never seen anything well, I think I've seen an angel once in human form. And I think it was in the Bible verse, that Bible verse where God sent an angel to test if I would do the right thing. And I did. But anyway, I think I did mostly the right thing at least. But I was asking God one day why he only allows me to see dark things. And I literally got a response from him. He said, because you would be able to convince people that you saw it. And right after that, I said, well, what's wrong with that? And before I could even get that thought out of what's wrong with that, he chewed on me, don't question me type of thing. And I never got a response of why God won't let me see light. He only lets me see the dark. And so I think I'm kind of jealous. I think it'd be really cool to see that kind of stuff, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Hey, Dakota. The Bible says to test the spirits.
Yes, very important.
Are you, you've met Jesus, who's been in the flesh, who came to earth as flesh, sacrificed himself for our sins, and is now at the right hand of God. Is that the Jesus we're talking about?
100%. And, I love that you brought up testing the spirits because when I was growing up with this gift, I was in middle school and I made friends while I was in middle school. I made friends with an angel who, long story short, turned out not to be an angel, was totally deceiving me. Of course, it was in middle school, right? Because middle school can be a dark place. And so I was terrified that I had been deceived. I was scared once I had found out what to do, I used my authority to send it away. It's in Jesus' name, be gone from here. And it did leave screaming from the school building. So I knew I had the authority to send them away. But I was so scared I would get deceived again. And I didn't want to open my spiritual eyes. I was like, God, I'm so scared. And I was reading my Bible. In middle school, I said I was going to read my Bible through in a year. And I actually did it. But this one verse, and I think it's second John. It's all over the first, second, and third John, honestly, but to test the spirit.
Right.
And when I read that, did Jesus Christ come in the flesh? I started using it on literally every spirit I came in contact with. And it's never steered me wrong.
Far out.
So I will always know if I'm speaking to something of God or something not of God.
Yeah, we've used that Bible verse before because we interview a lot of witches and Satanists and stuff like that claim to be talking to good things. And none of them really asked them about. We had a Christian witch come on. And I said, do you ask the spirits that you're speaking to that if they're who Jesus is? And she said, some of them don't want to be asked that.
Well, then you need to quit speaking to them.
And I was like, yeah, no crap. They don't want to answer that.
Turn and run.
Because then you'll figure out you'll figure out the truth, you know? So.
I have another question for you, Dakota.
Yes.
It's very interesting. You know, the Bible talks about in Revelation about the two witnesses in the end times. Mm-hmm. What's your feel? Do you think you could maybe be one of those witnesses?
Well, it's been a minute since I read those passages, but the way those witnesses end
it's not
is
good.
Pretty awful.
Right.
And I don't want to be one.
Right.
I don't want to be one. I also think, I'm not sure, and I can ask God more about this, but I think this might be two people who have at some point ascended into heaven. And so their physical body, you know, not Jesus, but who is it? It's either Enoch or Methuselah. Man,
right.
you know, getting into something.
Enoch was and then was not, and Elijah was taken up in a chariot.
Elijah was taken up, yeah.
Right. And so I haven't studied this out depth, but my understanding was that was going to be one of those people. God was going to send them back. You know, he took their bodies and he was going to send them back, and they were going to be witnesses because they had literally physically spent time with God in heaven.
Why'd you ask that, Mark? Like, what led you to ask that question?
Well, it's just interesting. I mean, you're not commonly, I mean, she's claiming prophetic knowledge, and it's pretty strong prophetic knowledge. Yeah. And you just don't commonly see that. So I was looking for, verses in the Bible that talk about, there's going to be many false prophets. We're warned by Christ himself. There's going to be many false prophets and many antichrists, the spirit of the antichrist, and that we're to test the spirits. And then also listening to her, it sounds to me like, I'm not finding any fault in what she's saying biblically. And so I'm thinking, that's really interesting because, I feel like we're at the close to the end times, and there are two witnesses in Revelation it talks about that's going to be the last hope. And they don't end well because
well, they do. I mean, they
don't end well in the physical.
They're killed.
Right.
They lay in the street for 3 days and then they rise again.
Right.
So I want to get this out of the way.
They
with
rise
you.
again,
so
brother.
That's good news,
they rise
brother.
again.
I want to get this out of the way with you, Dakota. I don't know if you remember a couple months ago. Do you know who Blake Speaks Fire is?
Honestly, not really. I've seen him. Maybe I don't really know who that is. I think I've heard his name.
So he's a content creator for Christianity, and he's a large creator. He has a lot of followers, right? And he made a video contesting something that you said, and basically what we do. I wanted to give you a platform to describe yourself in long form because I don't even think you responded to him. Which, if I'm getting something, I'm the same way. If I get somebody that's being loud and wants to challenge me and stuff like that, most of the time I just don't respond, right?
Yeah,
but
I
think you posted a video where you said you had saw gay people in heaven, and he popped back at you hard on that. And then I never saw a response. I actually don't even remember the full content of what your video was about the seeing gay people in heaven. Could you describe that for me?
Yeah. So this was a really important one for me to post.
Okay.
And it's because I have a lot of personal experiences that have led me to question why is this such a problem? Because a lot of people have driven so far away from Christianity because of something that they feel they don't have control over, which is who they're attracted to. And so I was asking God for many years, what is, how can this be? How can you be so cruel to people who, I'm not gay myself, so I don't know what it feels like, but they're telling me they don't have a choice. And so how can you be so cruel? And what God showed me was something that was difficult for me to understand, but I believe that, it settles in my heart, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And yes, I tested all the spirits on this one too. But basically, this was, I think, just last year. Jesus invited me up to heaven, and he was really excited, and he opened the doors into this big room in heaven, and I could tell we're at a party. So he had brought me to this giant mansion in heaven, and there were tons of people milling around. I believe this was an experience with saints, which are people who had passed away and came to heaven, and also with angels, but I think it was mostly saints. And Jesus, he loves a good party. He loves a good party. So he forged ahead of me, and he was making friends and talking with everyone. Everyone seemed so much taller than me. So I even lost him in the crowd for a moment, but it's okay because it's in heaven. Everything's all right. And he found me again after he'd sort of made the rounds, and he's like, "Come here, I want to show you something." So he pulls me to the side. We get out of the main part of the crowd and go over to this balcony. So it was outdoor air. And on this balcony, I saw a man, and he was dressed in a mix between a gown and a suit. And it was very clear to me that Adam, he was a gay man. And so Jesus had us have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. And I asked him how he was doing and his thoughts on Jesus. And it became, as I talked to him, it became very clear that he on earth only had the faith of a mustard seed, just a little bit, enough that it brought him to heaven. Okay. And he hadn't really developed much of a relationship with Jesus. Besides, he found himself in heaven, and there's this beautiful place waiting for him. And so even in heaven, he was just starting to develop a deep relationship with Jesus and God. But at some point in his life, he had chosen on a soul level. Yeah, I believe that. And when I asked him what his experience had been, what are you talking about with God and with Jesus? He said that, well, it wasn't pressure to not be gay anymore. What he told me is that God had revealed to him that on earth he had such a pressure to be so big in his looks and his personality to kind of really get across the message to everyone that I am different and I am not going to be in the box you put me in. And so he had become really flamboyant, I guess, to get that message across. But in heaven, that pressure was not there. And so he was just being. He was just as he was. He didn't have the pressure to be so big anymore. And that was something that he was learning.
I mean, I guess I could see that like if someone because you agree that there's no sin that's allowed in heaven anymore. There's no sin in heaven, right?
Yes, that is true. But there's another piece of it too, which is the work that Jesus did. Also, like, not only did he take away all the sin of the world, but even the system that would condemn us has been done away with now. We don't use it at all anymore. And so when the Holy Spirit comes, he helps us, and we give permission to the Holy Spirit to come. We start to live a life that often lines up with what would have been the law. But ideally, it's not going to be because we're trying to follow the law. It's because the Holy Spirit is living in us and living out in us.
Amen.
So that's so no, there's not sin, but there's also not a system that would condemn us anymore either.
Right. But like, I'm just asking because this makes me uncomfortable. It makes me wonder if, like, I don't know. I don't want to trap you into anything, and I just want you to know that I'm coming from this from like a pure heart. That I don't want to. I'm not here to hurt you at all. Mm-hmm. But this makes I feel uncomfortable right now. Super uncomfortable. Does anybody else feel that?
Well, I it's according to what you're hearing and what she's saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's different than anything we've ever heard.
We used to have these debates in school about the deathbed confession, whether the man that has lived his life in complete sin and against God and for himself and his own ego, right before he dies, says, "Lord, I'm sorry." Say he was even a murderer. and says, I'm sorry, give my life to Jesus. And is he saved? You know, and the flesh in me wants to say, well, that's not fair.
Yeah, because look at what all I've done. And
right.
But when it's not you anyway.
Right. And so I go back to that verse in the Bible. It says, who are you to judge another man's servant? Where God is saying, this is my domain. And these are the choices that I make. Yeah, in heaven, I would have a real problem if I learned that he was gay and practicing that in heaven, because we know from the law and from the Old Testament that's an abhorrent. I mean, that's what they did in idol worship. That angered and inflamed God. But what she's saying here is this man had a moment of mustard seed where he accepted Jesus Christ, and he was allowed into heaven because of that.
Well, that's what I was thinking when she was
Jesus
talking.
paid the price for that.
That's what I was thinking when she was talking too. There's going to be a lot of people in heaven that that found other people besides their wife attractive, but didn't, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that had weird attractions to, other people. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that were murderers, rapists, that it's all the same thing. So like,
right.
They
just repent.
She's not condoning anything. She's just saying that she saw a guy that
No,
had faith in Jesus Christ in heaven.
When you first explained that to me, I was a little concerned.
You're not concerned right now?
Well. No, because what she said. He had the faith of a mustard seed. The guy on the cross next to Christ had the faith of a mustard seed.
For a second,
all he did was recognize that was
Jesus,
and that he was not at fault to be hanging on that cross. He understood his sin, and he deserved the punishment that he was going through, and the other guy deserved the punishment because of what they had done. But all he did was say, "Remember me, Lord."
Yeah,
that was it.
Was it scary for you to post that video, Dakota, about you seeing a gay guy in heaven?
100%. Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
But I can go with. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I can go with that. There is, and I'm not going to mention names, but there was a guy here that was gay in this church.
Yeah.
And he stopped that lifestyle and got saved, started coming here, witnessed. I mean, we have a videotape of it. Okay. He witnessed.
Yeah, I seen it.
And he straight up, he's in heaven.
Yeah.
He died with COVID.
I met a guy that was so gay.
But the difference is that he asked for forgiveness.
Yeah.
He asked Jesus to come into his heart. We don't know the young man that she's talking about. I don't know why that would be evident, except that there are some people with a lot of feminine characteristics. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
I'm trying to be careful, and at the same time,
maybe Jesus is trying to talk to the gay community and say
that you can be forgiven.
You can be
because
God can forgive. Jesus will forgive you for all sin.
Yeah,
the only sin that he can't forgive you for is not accepting him.
Right. She was saying that guy she saw was super flamboyant on earth because his desire was to stand out from the norm. But in heaven, he didn't have to be that way anymore because he could just be himself.
Oh, I got to share this story with you saying that. It's very interesting because in a group I go to, it's in recovery, we call that being terminally unique, where I'm so... I
like that.
I'm so megalomaniac with an insecurity complex. I so desperately want to be different and I remember there was a unnamed gay couple there that goes to the same group I go to. And she said, well, I don't know what to do if they legalize marriage, because then we won't be so special anymore. I kind of feel like a rebel right now.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, you got a right to be as miserable as the rest of us. Made a joke of it.
Right.
But what I'm saying is I recognize that mindset in what she just shared with this guy in heaven is kind of almost it's the craving we all have. We just don't know what we're searching for, to be different, but yet valued, loved, seen. So anyway, I don't know if that made sense.
When I was in junior high, I'm sorry for jumping here, Dakota, but by the way, yes, I went to church camp. They even had it that long ago.
Yeah, well,
okay?
I love church camp.
I did go to church camp.
I went to church.
And there was a lot of great experiences there. I would have loved to have the connection that you have with Jesus, to be able to see him physically manifested in my spirit. But I my English teacher had a deal that said, "Dare to be different."
Right.
Okay, and I love lions. All right, I just love the look of the majesty of a lion and everything. So there was this great big picture of this beautiful lion, and it said, "Dare to be different." And I didn't realize how different that I would be from everybody around me, because I'm a rather large individual,
right?
And I'm a rather boisterous and loud and obnoxious, and a few other physical character or personality characteristics that bull in a china shop kind of thing. But I still, to this day, hold on to that. I dare to be different. I don't want to be the same. I don't want to follow. I want to lead.
Right.
I can follow when I'm asked to follow, and especially when God puts me in a position where I need to be in obedience to someone that he has placed over me. But when we are out in the world, because I don't live here in the church, but when I'm out in the world, I'm bold about what Christ has done in my heart and what Christ has done in my life.
All right.
And a lot of the guys that I hang out with have said, "Man, I just don't. You're kind of like loud and proud on this
You're
stuff."
on the drop, man.
and I don't
stay
see
in the closet, Larry. That's what they're saying.
I don't really see that I'm that different. But I had a new guy working with me the last couple of days, and he's like, everywhere we went, I would talk to somebody about Jesus. And last night when I dropped him off for the last, because he got a new job, so he's going to go over there. But that was one of the things that I talked to him about, was straight up, is listen, everywhere you get a chance, every time you get a chance, talk about Jesus. Talk about Jesus. So, Dakota, I'm sorry that I overran your conversation there.
Has Larry been talking this whole time again?
No, I have not. But would you mind giving me a physical description of Jesus?
Oh, yes, I would love to. He's like my favorite topic to talk about. Okay. So, well, actually, I am blessed to live in a time with another heaven visitor who has a gift to paint. And so I don't know if you guys know her name, but her name is Akiana Krameric. She's just a few years older than me.
Is that the girl? So I read a book a long time ago about, I think it's called Heaven is for Real. And
that's a different story, but there's also similar. Actually, go ahead. Explain what you're saying. I think there might be the connection I'm thinking of.
So the boy that got to go to heaven in that story met a girl that could paint. So the parents kept bringing pictures of Jesus to him, and he kept saying, "Nope, that's not what Jesus looks like. Nope, that's not what Jesus looked like." Until they finally came across this painting, and he said, "That's Jesus." And it was this little girl that painted him. And I think it might be the same one you're talking about.
Yes, that's Akiana's painting. So Colton Burpo, right? He visited heaven and he recognized Jesus from that. And I'm about the same age as these guys. I mean, Colton's younger than me. Akiana's a bit older than me. So when their stories are coming out, it was amazing to be existing and seeing what I was seeing at the same time. And that's a huge confirmation for me, because the painting that she painted and the one that Colton pointed to is also what I point to. So there's this painting that Akiana did when she was, 8 years old. It's insane that she did that, but it's called The Prince of Peace. And that's Jesus. That's Jesus. So the interesting thing, though, is that she also did another painting. And, when I saw that first painting, it was like, wow, this is so cool. I guess maybe what I am seeing is real. because I hadn't told too many people outside of my family and my church at that point what I was seeing. But, to get that confirmation was amazing. However, Akiana did paint another painting. It's called I Am, and it's of Jesus when he's a few years younger. And when I saw this painting for the first time, I didn't know who the subject was supposed to be, but I sat up out of my chair. I was watching an interview of hers on Katie Couric, and I was like, oh my, who is that? Who is that? And I had to do some quick internet research to find out who this painting was of, but it was of Jesus as he was a bit younger. And so this is the Jesus that I see. You know how you can recognize people at different ages? Well, the one that's the Prince of Peace one that Colton pointed to and Akiana painted first, that's him. That's Jesus about in his 30s. But the Jesus I hang out with, often he looks kind of more like he's in his 20s. And so I recognize him in both paintings, but I align more with the second painting, which is called I Am. And so, gosh, there's so much to say, but you guys probably don't have the painting pulled up in front of you.
No, we do. As you was talking,
Zach's been slamming on that laptop, and he pulled up the picture.
It was jamming.
Is the boy that you're talking about? Because I'm not real good with names. So, is the boy that you're talking about the one from the movie that says,
yes,
the boy who went to heaven?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Heaven is for real. Colton.
Yeah, heaven is for real. That's it. Yes. Okay. And then that little girl that painted the painting is the same girl that painted the painting on you, so that you recognize what you had seen was basically that.
She's identifying that what she sees of Jesus is equal to that painting, but she says she sees him at a younger age than that painting. There's a second painting. I can't find that one.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's on there. It's on her gallery. I go and check her gallery every now and then just to go look at it again because it's really nice. But anyway,
what's her name again?
Online gallery. Akiana Krameric. And so it's, do you want me to spell it out?
Nope, I got it.
Okay. So.
See, he's the computer guy. I'm over here going, yeah, you're going to pull it up so I can see it.
It's just my computer. I'm about to throw it through a wall because it's not.
Don't.
It's not acting.
It's still better than the one I got.
Okay, so Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed you didn't respond and stuff like that, and I to Blake when he said that, and I mean, like, this is what I want to say about that. I wish as Christians we could develop a better skill of listening, because I feel like if he would have just listened to you a little bit better, but he's also on the side too where he doesn't believe like the spiritual stuff happens. But but God God has given me I just discussed it with everyone before we started in this show. That God gave me a directive about this podcast in the very beginning. He said, create a Christian podcast designed for the person that doesn't believe in God. And then I've only had one direction in the middle between then and now. And that was, hey, you're getting out of line of what what I had you design the show as. Go back to that. And so we went back to it. And then the most recent directive I've gotten is I want you to make this show more spiritual. And I think, hey, God, look who I had on. I think we're doing it right. We're being obedient. And so I just think I posted a video yesterday about how real the spiritual world is. It's going on all around us. And I think that Dakota has given us no reason not to believe what she's saying.
I'm not feeling anything to where I'm sitting over here trying my best to, this can't really be. But then again, I know people personally that have witnesses visions and have talked with Jesus and those kind of things like that. So at the same time, why couldn't you? Why couldn't you? Because my spiritual eyes aren't open to that level. Why can't your spiritual eyes be open to that level?
Me and my boy Jesus both have big noses.
Yeah.
Your boy
that
Jesus.
That is one thing about Jesus.
I'm going to say that's not really
Aramaic.
I'm going to say saying that particular term is not really the fear of the Lord there, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, Jesus loves that stuff, all right? He meets us where we are. He wants to be as personal as possible. And that means saying stuff like, my boy Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like one thing about that Colton's book, when I was reading his book about him visiting heaven, he was so innocent, right? And he got into heaven and they were, I guess don't quote me on this exact story, but I'm just going to put some fillers in here that I don't know.
I'm not going to quote you, but you're actually saying it, so go ahead.
So the kid, what he said is, I guess the angels were singing a song, and then the kid asked the angels, he said, do you guys know We Will Rock You?
Yeah.
And the angels all laughed and said, no, we don't sing stuff up there. But they laughed and they acknowledged the joke. So here's what I got from that story whenever I was reading that book. First of all, I doubt any Freddie Mercury songs are going to be going on in heaven, right? But the angels knew what it was.
They knew they got the pop culture reference.
And they were lighthearted enough to where they laughed about it.
Right.
There's like, no, we don't entertain that type of stuff here, but it was really cute that you said that.
Right.
So I don't think Jesus or the angels or anyone running around whenever someone says something like that, they're going, like when I say my boy Jesus, my boy Jesus got big noses, like I literally see my nose no matter where I look. I know it's big. And my boy Jesus, I know he's CBC his everywhere he goes too.
Yeah, man. Heck yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, man. Okay.
I'm just saying, Jesus got a big nose.
Look, mine holds up my glasses. That's all it's there for.
Right.
Oh, I wanted to ask you this, Dakota. There's that, who is it? Doubting Thomas. Said,
Doubting Thomas.
unless I put my hands in his side and see the scars in his hands, I won't believe. I think, and I don't know if it's true, that Jesus is going to retain those scars for us in heaven. Is your experience? Have you seen his hands? Are they there?
They are.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Not in his hands, but in his wrist.
In his wrist, you're right.
And not in his feet, but in his ankles.
Wow. Yeah.
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 That's a hard one for me to talk about. To really see, to focus on that and see you just from seeing the scar and like the hole, like you can literally look at the right angle straight through.
Wow.
And it's healed now. Like it's kind of got like a pinkish almost. I mean, it's sort of scar. It's as healthy as scar tissue could be, I guess.
Right.
And so, but to see how big those holes are, and to understand that the best man that ever walked the earth, in my opinion, got some of the worst treatment, and to really viscerally see that, it affects me even to this day.
Oh, who wouldn't it affect? My goodness, to know that's he's kept that for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for us. That's
Scars for the world.
So that's kind of crazy that you described it like scar tissue. So Jesus is still very much human when you see him. Like he's like me and you. Like he's just as like you see as.
Well, I think he's taller than you, Zach.
No, he's not. Me and my boy Jesus, we got big noses and we're 5'7".
Actually, that's about right. I think Jesus is about 5'6", actually.
There you go. I lie and say I'm 5'7". I'm probably 5'6". I don't really know how tall I am. I went to the doctor once, and
they measured him and he refused to look.
No, the doctor said, "How tall are you?" And I said 5'7". He said, "No, you're not. Stand up." And I stood up. And he said, "I'm 5'10", and we're the same height. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm 5'10". Cool.
All right then. You'll take it. Yeah.
I said, you better believe I'm going to change that on my license next go around.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I don't know. This is just it's really cool hearing this. And I know this has got to be scary for you. Like, I bet, you know what? I bet there's people out there with this gift that don't tell anybody about it.
Oh, yeah. That was me for a while, or at least not on a big audience. And there are a lot of people that are so scared and say nothing. And then their gift starts to wither away a little bit. I don't think you can necessarily, I think I'm speaking more here because I get a lot of people on my page saying like, I had this gift when I was younger. I saw only scary things and I asked God to take it away and now I see nothing. And they're not sure how they feel about not seeing anything anymore. God honored their request. And so I have a lot of compassion for people that, I don't know, maybe it could have been something so positive, because with the gift of spiritual sight, I have a choice on what I point my eyes to. So I've just been watching snippets of your show, and honestly, I think the work you do is so crucial, like crucial to our next conversation as as Christians and how we relate to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Because you have found a way to actually be respectful and to listen to other people in a way that talks about really, really hard things and also is compassionate. I'm in awe, honestly. You're doing something really, really difficult. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much.
I think a lot of the people that come on do have real gifts, but they pointed it at a direction that wasn't at Jesus. And I relate in some ways to people that pointed things that are clearly demonic, because I know within myself I could have gone that direction. And I chose not to. And I choose not to, because that doesn't feed me life. Jesus does. God does. And I've surrendered to their power. But a lot of people have real gifts and they're so scared of them. And a lot of people exploring their gifts go very quickly off to something demonic that will later on probably destroy their life in some way. And so I don't know how I fit in for people who have gifts yet, but I do want to be a light to say it can be so good. Maybe it's not a gift to go visit heaven, but there are angels out there and it can be so, so good. So anyway, I feel for people.
I think that's a really good, I actually think that's a really good idea for you to head down that path of leadership for people that might be scared, because it's getting more increasingly difficult to talk about the spiritual. Like, I have a sister that doesn't believe, and I think about that every time I post a video. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to make fun of me. But she is supportive of me no matter what. And I know that's only in my own head because she's a great woman. But like, it's getting hard to be spiritual in today's day and age, and it's only going to get harder. And what you're saying is extremely spiritual. And I know it's got to be hard, but I think we do need to help people embrace the gifts that they have and grow it. We need to make them into, like, disciple them, I guess you'd call it, into bringing them up into their gift. And if their gift is to see in the spirit, then we need, that is the spirit of Satan that tells you this isn't real. Stop saying this. You're talking to demons, what would you say to the person right now that only sees darkness? And would you tell them to ask God to take that away, or how would you tell them to hone that?
For the person that has only seen darkness, I am more than willing to bet that there was a lack of support in this area in terms of seeing things to light and seeing things that are of God and of light and actually bring life. And so I just want to acknowledge for that person, very likely you have probably gone through something alone and some terrifying things alone. And I know what that feels like, because although I talk about all my positive experiences, I've had the really negative experiences too. And I want you to know that even if you don't see Jesus in those experiences, it doesn't mean he's not right there. Because man, I could really go in depth of almost like this scientific side of like multiple dimensions and how Jesus has shown me like accessing one versus another. But just because you're seeing the dark things doesn't mean that there is still not more to see and more of God. And if you don't even have to worry about fighting away the darkness so much. It's more about keep your eyes on Jesus, and finding a supportive community is really good. If you do ask for God to take the whole gift away, he's going to honor that, because he's a God that honors our choices and he actually loves us. But there is another choice, and to say, God, I honor you first. Where you want to take my gift, I will follow, and just keep your eyes on Jesus. Don't point your eyes at anything else. Seek Jesus first, and the rest will be revealed to you in his timing. And that's what I would say to begin.
Okay, that's good, because I'm kind of that person that only sees darkness. So, and then when you said something about, you can ask my wife, a lot of times I feel like I'm fighting these battles alone. I tell her I'm alone. Like, I don't feel like anybody relates to what I'm going through. And it's not anybody else's fault. It's not mine. It's just that I feel like I'm alone in these dark moments, just because I feel like the way I feel like it's hard to articulate, to get people to understand the way I feel. And it makes me feel like I'm doing it by myself, but I know that's not true. Does that make sense? And so
you have no idea how much sense that makes to me.
I imagine it does. I imagine it does. Yeah, especially for what you're going through. But
it's just the human condition.
Yeah, and so
to describe, we all feel.
I appreciate you having the guts and courage to say the things you're to say the things you're saying, because I know it's uncomfortable. Because I know it's uncomfortable for me. Those stories where I saw the two demons that. When I was out running, I mean, all that stuff was very difficult for me to say. And you're talking about literally visiting heaven and talking to our Savior.
Why is it that we, as humans, find it easier to believe that you saw demons than it is for us to believe that she saw Jesus?
Well, because... that is. I was thinking about that earlier too. I was thinking about that same exact thing.
I mean, technically, we've had a lot of people on here that told us that they saw demons. You know,
yeah.
I can go through here. I've got 38 pages of notes here that tells me who saw demons, and we believed every one of them.
Every single one of them.
But when it comes down time for somebody to say that they literally had an experience with Jesus, hand to hand, but I mean, like they were holding hands. But we find that so hard to believe.
Why do you know?
I think I know why. I think it's the same reason as whenever homosexuals are mentioned, we start getting really uncomfortable, because we've looked at the way Satan's hand has gone in through religion and corrupted the Word of God.
Very much so.
And so I think Christians are all, and we live in a fallen world, we're all hyper vigilant. And so these things of, well, okay, the homosexual is got a lifestyle. I can't accept that lifestyle. Can you accept that person? Can you love that person? Can you love them past their sin? You know what I mean? Can you? Well, yeah, but they're going to try to come in and corrupt the church. We're all vigilantly trying to protect what we've got, right?
Yeah.
Because we feel like it's our duty, really, because, the Bible tells us, we're supposed to test spirits. We're supposed to do this. And we see, especially in this modern day, so much corruption going through the church, where Satan's come in through moral relativism and prosperity, all different kinds of different modes of teaching people. It takes a little bit of truth. That's what Satan's good at, taking a little bit of truth and stacking a lie on top of it, or a lot of truth and a little bitty lie.
Yep.
And so, you have to be discerning. What does the Bible say? To be like lambs, but wily as serpents.
Yeah.
So we fight with this, but my heart is also open to God when he speaks. And, if we do the test and we hear this, everything that she says is just, I can just feel the Spirit of God. I mean, it feels that way to me.
I'm sitting here thinking,
and I think it's beautiful. I totally believe that Jesus came and took her to heaven.
Okay, I believe too. But okay, so here's what I want to say. Whenever I was saying that, like sitting here, you were saying that, I was thinking of this, that, spoiler alert, every single person inside your church, every single person that you say you love right now, literally commits an act that is worthy of sending them to hell every single day.
Right.
More than once.
Right.
Literally betrays God every day.
Every day.
So just because you don't agree with what they're doing doesn't mean that your boy that you're saying you love, they're more worthy of heaven than the person that you don't think is worthy of heaven.
Right. So could that be like Dakota was saying?
Exactly.
Keeping your eyes off, making your eyes stray off of Jesus?
Exactly.
Your eyes start straying off of Jesus. Look what happened to Peter. Peter started sinking in the water, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Dakota, we are at 1:34. So what we do at the end of our shows, I don't want to keep you too much longer, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. What we do is we do the rounds. We all go around the room and we say just one final goodbye to you and stuff like that, and then you'll get the final say to close out the show, okay?
Okay, how long is my final say?
You can go as long as you want. We got about 15 minutes total here, but if you wanted to go a little longer, I don't care.
Okay, this helps me. Thank you.
I'll just make a ambulance sound with my mouth if it goes too long. I'm just kidding. She might go long just to hear me do that now. So, okay, Mark, it's you.
We've got church tonight at 7.
I know. Okay.
Jesus already knows this, Dakota, but next time you see him, we tell him I said hi. And
I can do that.
Yes. And I just have this verse, Acts 2:17. In the last day, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. So that's all I got.
Yes.
Angela, you got something?
I just want to say thank you for coming on. It was very, very, in the beginning, I was really like skeptical of it because I was like, oh, this girl says she's been to heaven, she visits heaven frequently. That's kind of weird, But after hearing your story, it really relates, and I'm just very thankful that you got to share and that we can all come together and just like feel the Spirit of God in this whole room. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dakota, what state are you from? Just out of curiosity.
I am from North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Love North Carolina.
Yeah,
good people down there.
My daughter lived in South Carolina for a while.
That's also a nice place.
Yep. Yeah. Usually I have a lot of verses to give, and today it's like I'm looking at one that I think I did in my flesh, and it was to kind of rebuke all of this thing. But now that I've actually had a conversation with you, I think God was showing me a different one on the same page.
All right, PP. We call him, I call him Peepaw, but I take out the paw and I call him PP because he puts on these glasses that make him look like a grandpa. And that's just my special word for him.
I am a grandpa.
Let's go, PP.
I am a grandpa. I just
say
don't
your
have
Bible
a lot of gray
verse,
hair.
PP.
I don't know, Zach, man. That's fighting words. PP.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. He's
Larry,
doing his best, man.
he really is.
Yeah.
I can still run, dude.
Yeah, and I can still shoot you.
We're gonna get banged.
Revelations 21:5. He who is seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true.
Amen.
I am making everything new. The world that we believe in and what we see now isn't necessarily how it should be. It's not how God created it.
No.
Satan has contaminated it. Satan has contaminated the church. Satan has contaminated music. Satan has contaminated everything. But I do know that there will be a new earth and a new heaven. And those things will never pass away once God does that. And it's amazing because I was talking with my friend Daly out here before the podcast, and he's a young man that I enjoy conversing with immensely. He and I were discussing the reason that we need a new heaven and a new earth is because right now Satan, Lucifer, has access to the throne. He was created by God. He has access to the throne. Yes, he was kicked out of heaven, but he continually, the Bible says, stands before God and condemns us continuously. And we know that he is rampant on this earth. That's the reason that there has to be a new earth and a new heaven, is because that's how God purifies, is to create new. Through that process, I liked what you said. Here I am, Lord. I mean, you basically kind of mentioned that when Jesus said, are you ready? And you said, yes. Very excited. Yes, I am. Okay. Yes, here I am. I mean, if Jesus came to me right now and said, Larry, my whole last 6 months has really been focused on, here I am, Lord, use me. Here I am, Lord, use me. Here I am, Lord, please use me. I would love to have the spiritual eyes that I could see. I think the reason that God doesn't give us all those kind of spiritual eyes is because we're not strong enough to handle it.
Yeah.
And she was talking about her family being made ready, I think is how you said it, right?
Yes.
You'd have to be.
To be able to handle that. And I was like thinking of my brothers and my sisters, and if that would have been me or my friends family or even the church I grew up in, would they have been able to handle it if I told them that? Would they have been able to understand that I saw Jesus?
Most people get shunned, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. You get kicked out of your church.
So first off, I want to say thank you for being different
and brave.
Thank you for being strong enough to get this word out there. And thank you for not backing down from it at all. I admire your courage. What is the name of your podcast?
I currently don't have a podcast, so I'm working on it. This is all very new to me, guys.
All right. So how are, I mean, like Blake, I know who.
She's
I
on
don't
TikTok.
Know, she knows I know less than anybody in this room.
He's asking
and I know
how do
Blake.
people get how do people find you?
Yes. So I'm Dakota Lee Talks on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. That's where I am currently.
Okay. Okay. My turn now. Larry, you're done.
Okay.
We're at 141. Okay. So I normally don't read a Bible verse, but I wanna read this. 1 Corinthians 2:14. It's in the video I posted yesterday, but it's so.
What was it again?
1 Corinthians 2:14, and okay. I just know that the message that God gave me, and then the video I edited this last week and posted yesterday,
is all for now. It
all coincides to this moment right here. 1 Corinthians 2:14. I'm going to read the New International Version. That's what I normally read. And it says, the person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness and cannot understand them because they are discerned only through the Spirit. Here's what I'll say. The spiritual world that is happening all around you right now is more real than anything that you're experiencing in the room. Just like in that video, what I said, the Spirit is the realest thing in the room. I understand why you would check Dakota's story at the door and be like, man, this makes me feel uncomfortable. But if you are a Christian or anyone else that's out there thinking that the spiritual world is fake, it's foolish, it's silly, I think you need to reevaluate what you're doing and ask yourself if you're discerning these things with the Spirit that God has given you. And if you are not looking into spiritual things at all, I would be digging into that and figuring out why. I'm not condemning you. I'm not saying that you don't have the Spirit, but I would be asking myself, why am I not looking into the spiritual more? Because it's real, it's there, and if you don't prepare for it, it's going to eat your lunch.
Amen.
So anyway, Dakota, thank you for coming on. I learned more than I've ever learned on any episode today. I learned a lot.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. I feel humbled. I did go into this nervous and scared and afraid because afraid of what you were going to say and afraid that I was going to have to be like, no, this is false. And I was very uncomfortable. And I think you convinced all of us and made me learn to approach people even differently and to maybe believe even things that I don't want to believe in the beginning, you know? I didn't know, honestly, I didn't know if you were telling the truth or not in those videos, but I always hoped it was. But like these guys brought up a lot of good points today with me that why is it that we believe the demonic all the time? We've had this is our 38th episode, and we've had probably 30 or 35 of them that have had experiences with the demonic, and we never even questioned it at all. Never. Never even question it in my mind. And then you come on and we question it. And it's just, it's not fair. You didn't say anything outside of the Bible today. And I'm happy I learned that me and my boy Jesus got big noses. And I appreciate
I'm happy
that.
for you too.
Okay. All right. The floor is yours, Dakota.
Okay. So guys, thank you so much. I was really excited to come on today, and I'm so glad I did. And I'll leave with one more story that, especially since this is a podcast for unbelievers, that, man, it really challenged my faith, but it also opened up so many things and opened me up to God's compassion. So when I was in middle school, I learned a little bit about the deaf community, and I learned that some people in the deaf community say, don't call me disabled. They say I'm just differently abled, and I love my life. And some of them are given a choice to hear again, maybe with a cochlear implant, and they actually choose to turn it off or choose not to. And that fascinated me. That they choose to stay not hearing. So I immediately went to God, because at that point I had been visiting heaven for at least a year. And I remember I was in the throne room with God, and I go, God, what would happen if someone who was deaf their whole life got to heaven and they tell you, God, I don't want to be healed. I don't want to hear. I find it more peaceful. I want to keep access to my community. And I don't want to be hearing. I said, God, what would you do? And God told me, well, Dakota, I would look at their heart. I would truly know what their heart desired, and I would grant them that request. And that blew me away. And then I went a little further. I said, okay, but God, what if they're in heaven and they try out the not hearing thing, but then they realize they're not fully satisfied with that. And they come back to you and say, okay, God, I want to try hearing now. What would you do? And God said, well, Dakota, again, I would look at their heart. And if this is something that they truly desired, and I saw that could be good for them, then I would grant them that. And they could hear. And I thought about this. And then I went even further. I said, okay, God, but what if they try the hearing thing for a while and they come back to you and say, God, I want to go back to being deaf again. I was happier and it was more peaceful, maybe when I couldn't hear. What would you say? And again, this is all a hypothetical, but God's still going with me. And God said, well, Dakota, again, I would look at their heart. And if this is something they truly desired, then I would grant them this request. And that has always stuck with me, because our choice, our free will choice is so crucial and intertwined with true love. There cannot be real love, real deep love, without free will choice. And that comes up in every aspect in my life and so much in my faith. And so for those of you who maybe are living a lifestyle that you think would not be accepted by God, I want you to hear what I have learned, which is God looks at your heart and he knows what is best for you. I don't know what is best for you. None of us here knows what is best for you. And there's a chance you don't even know what's best for you. Half the time I don't know what's best for me, but God does. And he will see the desires of your heart. He knows what's good for you. And he will be the one that will be in charge of that if you let him. So it's scary to surrender to God sometimes, but there is so much good waiting on the other side. And will you trust him if he asks you to change? And will you trust him if he keeps you as you are? So that is how I'm going to end our Help My Unbelief podcast today.
Thank you for coming on, Dakota. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you guys.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds
Bye.
good. Bye-bye.
Bam, mic drop.
I'm like crying over here, bro.
Right?
Like,
I'm sitting here thinking, wow.
sounds like someone that's been visiting heaven for a long time. Like she talks about, like, she's the epitome. Like she could have literally just came on here and condensed this into trust God. God knows you down to your very little heart, and to just trust him. That's what the moral of a story was. Even if you don't believe, like you're struggling with believing, and
choose Jesus.
Yeah, and who you are, like, and who you love. Like, say you are attracted to men, but God doesn't accept me that way. No, humans don't. God does. And
he accepts the dirty diapers.
Yeah,
I've had plenty of dirt in my diaper.
And she said to trust him if he changes you, and trust him even if he doesn't and chooses to keep you the way you are.
Right. Just
so
trust
profound,
God.
man. There was nothing unbiblical that what she said there. Nothing. Right. And that's what I want to challenge you Christians that go and attack her. Like this Blake, I love Blake, man, and I think he really helps the Christian community out a lot. I think he really does. You know him. He's the guy with the tats all over.
Yeah.
He called her a demon, I mean, just said that she's a demon. And
they said that about Jesus.
I mean, he was really pissed off at her, and she didn't even respond. And I think we all need to develop a listening
I think
skill.
we need to learn that lesson right there. That lesson you just pointed out.
Listen. Yeah.
No. Do not respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Jesus was accused standing before Pilate,
he did not
respond.
Yeah.
Why?
Because he didn't have to defend the indefensible.
You don't have to defend the truth.
And another thing I learned today too was if you guys weren't here with my conversation with her, that would not have went, because of you guys are so more versed in the Bible, and I lean so heavily on your opinions, whether something's right or wrong. I was literally fixing, I'll be honest with you, on air. I won't wait till after air to say this, but I was fixing to get off the phone with her because I was so uncomfortable. I was fixing to hang it up. I was like, I do not like this. I don't like the way this is going. I cannot air this. I can't air this. I can't be responsible for this going out and people hearing this. And then when I think you started it, and then when you started, I was like, okay, I'll wait. And then when you confirmed it, I opened up my ears to listen to her a little bit. And then I listened to what she said. She's very profound. She's not saying anything unbiblical. So I appreciate you guys for being here. And I that's the truth. I think that conversation would have went differently if you guys weren't here.
Well, the biggest thing that I saw that would be a difference in the way that I was raised, and it is also written so much differently in the Bible's different versions, is, and it is a thing to me, okay? I've had this discussion and argument, and the Lord kept my mouth shut through this, which I prayed before, Lord, harness my mouth. I always believed the nails in the hands, not the wrist. I never once considered the nails in the ankles instead of the feet. There have been lots of different people talk about the nails in the wrist, nails in the hands. So there's discrepancy between our interpretation, not between the word. Okay? Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that there is a mistake written in the Bible. What I am saying is the interpretation of what we know or think happened 2,000 years ago.
Well, what if the Hebrews word for hand meant from here to here?
Exactly.
Right.
And
There's
the logic,
no point to even using
the
that.
logic behind it has been explained to me, was that if you put the nail here,
can't support weight,
then it'll support the weight where it'll pull through here because there's no ligaments. There's ligaments, but there's not enough mass.
Well, he had to hold himself up.
It would just rip. No, it would just rip.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like his wrist, like the whole reason he died, he died of physical exhaustion from having to pull himself up.
You asphyxiate.
To breathe.
You
Yeah.
end up asphyxiating.
Yeah, if they'd done that in his hand, it would have just
Ripped
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
And they say that's how the Romans actually did
Yes,
crucify
that's
people.
and that's where I actually got that. I had that knowledge in my head, but I've always, you know how we are.
Right.
We stick with what we learned.
Right.
But with what she said, I felt the change in my heart about it.
Right.
Because I've never once thought about the ankles. Never once. And it was, oh, man.
That was the
Have
catalyst.
I been wrong? Have I been wrong about things?
The catalyst for me is whenever you said that we've had literally, like, I would say 30 people on here that have told demonic stories, and we just ate that up like candy. And then when this is on, we're all like, when you said that, I was like, whoa, I didn't even give her a chance. Like,
Well, I didn't when we were sitting out there.
yeah,
You know?
you didn't either, too.
I rolled my eyes and went like, Christian what? You know?
Yeah.
What is this person going to be called?
But guys, also be a little kind to yourself. It's because we're warriors for Christ, and we're cognizant of the war and how deceiving and subtle the serpent is.
Yeah.
And as Christians, but that's a problem. It can make you cynical.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to fight is the cynicism.
Yeah.
You know? And the Bible gives us tools to do that.
So technically we probably did the right thing with her of being cynical in the beginning, and then God revealed to us her reality in the middle of the show.
Right.
So technically we probably did we didn't like betray her or anything else like that. We did what you're supposed to. And that's why I think she knew we were cynical, and she's been doing this for so long that she knew how to handle us in the beginning. She knew. Yeah, she's been doing it so long. She knew how to handle us, and she knew how to prove it.
I don't think that she's experienced as much in this format of being interviewed.
I think that was just the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is, like, I think she knew how to navigate it. I think she knew how to navigate it to where she knew that she had to be soft with us, because she's like, she knows how Christians are. You know, she knows that people are going to be skeptical, so she knows how to navigate that part of being like, okay, she knows she has to prove herself. Just like me, like if I hire someone, right? There's some bosses that'll think this guy's got to prove himself to me, but I go into it looking at both ways. Not only just because I'm the owner of the company doesn't mean I don't have to prove my trustworthiness, my loyalty, that I deserve respect. I have to do that for that employees as well. Some owners of companies don't look at that like that. They'll say, you work for me, you do what I say, or you're gone. It's not the way I look at it. It's like, I'm looking at this like a lifelong commitment with all of us as well. And I fully understand that I have to earn people's respect. And I have to do things that are worthy of being called a leader to these people, no matter what position I am in, right? But then so does he. He has to prove himself to me as well, right? And I think she's taken that standpoint from, I'm not saying she's manipulating anything. She understands, I don't know these people, they're Christians, and I have to
her
prove
past
myself.
Experience has told her how we would react.
Yeah.
And
so she knew how to
not
But
reacting
not only
that way.
She said that in the beginning, is that she deals with this every day. So she had to prove and go gentle with us because she deals with this daily. I don't know if you guys caught that or not.
Truthfully, like, what does she have to gain from this? Like, it's more harm than good. I mean, she's getting more harm than good for it. Yeah. Like,
what do we have to gain?
It just goes.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully,
right? We don't gain anything.
Yeah, we don't gain anything from this.
It just goes.
We're just walking in obedience.
Right. It just goes back to why I tend to believe it, because after you saw the face of God, how could you not? You'd have to go and talk about it. Right. Frankly, you wouldn't have much of a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about it and I haven't seen his face.
Right.
I've just seen his work in his hand in my life.
Have conversations with him and
I'll walk up to a complete stranger and say,
yeah, I mean, we look at the boldness of the prophets in the Bible. You know, it's not like these were amazing. God spoke to them.
Yes.
They didn't have any choice.
Yes.
It's like, God spoke to me. I'm beyond worrying about what you have to say about it. Here are the words of the Lord. Make your own decision.
I got asked, this is pretty neat. I got asked to teach Sunday school at the church in El Reno.
No.
Yeah, because Paula and Pastor Paula and Pastor Gary were on vacation. So Carter got to speak at church, but she had asked me to teach the Sunday school class. Dude, I was terrified.
Yeah.
Okay, and I told him, I started off, I went, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I spoke in the military in front of people. I've spoken classes in front of people. I've taught at the men's conferences. I've witnessed to people. I do a podcast. You know, I'm not even going to tell you what that's about, but I mean, all of this and this little crowd in this Sunday school class made me extremely nervous.
Right. It's different. It's a different thing. That's why Pastor Gary, when he came on this podcast, he said that he was nervous, and he has been standing in front of congregations for 40 years, and this made him nervous. It's different. It's a different ball game, bud.
But the funny thing is that I said, you know, and I've been saying it. Here I am, Lord, use me. And then the Lord sends me to El Reno. Here I am, Lord, use me. And then the Lord not only puts me in that position to where I know that we're supposed to stay more than just 1 or 2 Sundays. And now we've been out there like
a month. Yeah.
No, it's actually almost 2 months down. I think
That's
this
been a
is
long
coming
time.
up on the 8th. 8th time will be this Sunday. And I'm sitting there going, here I am, Lord, use me. Now I'm doing a Sunday school class, you know.
That's cool.
Here I am, Lord, use me. So I got around a new kid the last couple of days where I got to be able to speak into Ian in a way that on that one-on-one approach that we have. And being able to say that, well, one of the things, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think my devotional said, here I am, Lord, use me. And I sent it to Darcia, but she hadn't read it. And she had prayed that morning, here I am, Lord, use me. And then she gets the devotional from me that says, here I am, Lord, use me. And then we were asked to go out Sunday morning. Yes, Sunday morning. I'm supposed to speak on Sunday school. And Pastor Kevin gives me a phone call, like 3 phone calls before church on Sunday. That's massively unusual. And he says they're having a, what is it called? The food thing. Huh? Potluck. Yeah, potluck at the church at 6 o'clock. I need you and Darcia, because we have things going on here at this church, I need you and Darcia to go participate in that and represent us. And I was like, okay. You know, when Pastor asks, I say, okay. So I go in there and say, hey, by the way, hon, we're going to have to figure out how to do my class at 4:30 instead of 5 because it's the last day of the class that I was teaching. And we're going to have to do that so that we can go to the potluck. She goes, we're going to drive back out to El Reno. And I said, yes, we are. And she goes, well, I didn't think it happened that fast.
Right.
And I said, what happened that fast? She goes, this morning I said, here I am, Lord, use me. And now he's already doing it. And it's like, I didn't expect that fast of a response.
Yeah. And when you say, here I am, use me, you've got your ideas in mind, but it's never the way you
Darcia.
Amen.
Darcia is awesome.
All right. Let's wrap it up. We're at 2:02. I just want to say thank you. I learned so much from this episode. So thank you, Dakota Lee, for coming on again. I'm going to take what I learned. I'm going to meditate on it tonight, and then I'm going to put the things I learned into action.
Here I am, Lord, use me. Jesus loves you. So do I.
Thank you for watching and listening. We are out.
I'll take you home.
Thank you so much for listening to the Help My Unbelief podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And more importantly, tune in every Tuesday at 9 a.m. for new episodes.